I went very cold, very still, very fast. The bus seat next to me had been empty this whole trip. Now, there was an old woman sitting in it, leaning in towards me way too close for comfort. I hadn't shut my eyes or anything. One heartbeat, the seat had been empty. The next, the old woman, smelling of lavender and death, sat in it. How did I know what death smelled like? Live on the streets alone and hungry for years like me, and you become an expert on a lot of things kids with homes know nothing about. The smell of death got stronger. I looked up. Green cat eyes studied me out of a face that must have found a sale on wrinkles. She was all gussied up in a dress that looked as new and fresh as the old dead woman's in the attic of the Bates Motel. She frowned at me as if she could read my thoughts. I smiled crooked. I hoped she didn't mind a little light reading. Without one word, she thrust a folded note to me. I just sat there. Yeah, like I was going to come close to touching her. She shook it hard, her cat eyes becoming slits. Jeez, I didn't want an old lady smacking me. A guy couldn't hit an old woman. I took it with all the thrill of touching roadkill. It was cold, real cold. So cold it burned my fingers. I looked down at it. It was smoking. I looked back up to the old woman. She was gone. My shivers got goosebumps. Cue the spooky music, I whispered. I unfolded the paper. It was blank. A shaft of moonlight pierced the tree cover beside the racing bus and splashed across the page. Words in squiggly print flashed before my eyes. I only saw one word clear. Hell. Then the moonlight was gone, and so were the words. The shivers stayed. I shrugged. They and I were old traveling companions. I slowly folded the note and put it in the pocket of my black t-shirt with trembling fingers. I told myself that death was bound to get me sooner or later, and just enjoy the ride until then. I told myself that a lot. It hadn't made the fear any easier to live with in the past, nor did it make fear any less numbing right then. I sat there stiff and shivering, expecting the old lady to return, but she never did. What had just happened? I had lived a wild life, but this was something new even for me. The eye sees more than the mind can understand, or at least my mind, and we go through life self-blinded to a lot that lies in front of us. We want a simple world, but we live in a scary, complex one, and rather than open ourselves to it, we lie and force ourselves to see the world through filters that make it seem less frightening. But a street kid like me couldn't afford to lie to himself. What was scary could be outwitted, but only if you told yourself the truth about it. Still, you never won the war, only a battle. Evil was a thing with teeth, and while sometimes it retreated, it came back at the whisper of its name. The hours refused to return from nightmare. Things kept getting spookier. The other passengers never turned around, not during the old lady's creepy entrance or at her sudden exit. Although the bus never stopped, one by one the passengers disappeared until only I was left. I could never spot them blink out. Their leaving was like the moving of the minute hand of a clock. It happened. I just could never catch it. Each time I noticed one gone, I jumped, and my shivering got worse. You would have thought the others would have been scared or freaking out. They just sat there, heads down and eyes avoiding mine. Some of them began to cry softly. By the time the last one disappeared, I was almost crying myself. But I was Victor Standish. I didn't cry anymore.